Welcome back to Project Buggy, guys. Last week we pulled the jugs and the heads off our Project Buggy here. We cleaned them up and we kind of analyzed them a little bit. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into them today, see how they cleaned up, and I think we're going to pull the engine and maybe the transaxle today, so stick around. Here's a shot of the heads for cylinders 1 and 2. This cylinder I've already kind of cleaned up with a little brush and stuff, and kind of got in here and got a lot of the corrosion out of here. This one I haven't touched yet, but it still needs to be done. There's still quite a lot of corrosion on the inside here, and then this whole area just needs to be kind of cleaned up and polished. I still have work to do on this one. Cylinders 3 and 4 I haven't touched yet. This is out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and it just still needs to be cleaned up quite a lot. Our valves cleaned up pretty good. Most of them are just nice and shiny now, looking really good. The exhaust valves need a little bit more work to clean them up, so we'll have to work on that as well. That thing will focus. There you go. Still just a little bit of carbon on them, but altogether they came out pretty good out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Funny enough, the ultrasonic cleaner went kaput right after I was done cleaning this. A bit of a side quest here, but I did open up the ultrasonic cleaner and I found one of these signal generators, or whatever you want to call them, that make the vibration, was not adhered anymore to the bottom of the pan like the rest of these 5 were. So this 6th one was just off completely. And the other thing I found was a bunch of these shavings. That'll focus, probably not, inside the enclosure here. So I JB welded back the signal generator, or whatever you want to call it, onto the pan here with JB weld, which looks like actually what the rest of these are adhered with. So we'll see how that goes. But I believe these shavings, which came from the factory like that, probably some kind of manufacturing shavings, had shorted out between the board and the case here. There is a fuse on the back side where the plug comes in. There's lots of fuses on the board, but the fuse that popped was the one with the power coming in right here. And I stuck another fuse in there and it shorted again. I found another piece of the shavings between the board and stuff. I've cleared that now, but I'm out of fuses. So I've ordered fuses online. I'll give you guys an update if that fixed the problem. But for 250 bucks, I got like 1 use out of this so far. I would say that's not good for my money. So hopefully we can get this fixed. And I got plenty of other parts with the buggy to clean. So we'll see. Now, one thing we needed to check after I got these heads out is these valve guides. And if I put one of these exhaust valves in, there is some play in these. It's not a whole lot, but I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there is some play in these valves. The exhaust valve I don't think is as bad as the intake valve here. Let's get this in here. It's just a little bit of play in here. It's kind of at the point where it's like you could leave it or you could replace it. I think I'm going to err on the side of replacing it. So one of the things we need to do is replace these valve guides. Not sure if we'll get a shop to do it or we'll do it ourselves. We'll probably do it ourselves, but it's something we got to look into. And then the valve seats are craptacular as well. Some are worse than others. A lot of corrosion along the valve seats. I don't know if I can get that in there and you guys can see that or not, but they're definitely going to need to be cut again, at least. So we're going to have to look into that, or replaced. Probably cut. I'd like to do a lot of the work myself. I could take it to a head shop and do it, but then I wouldn't have any content for you guys. Now, I did clean up the case. It was kind of greasy and stuff like that in the last video. And the other thing that I did was do some rough measurements on the cam, because talking to my buddy, he believed that there was an aggressive cam in this engine when he bought it. And I think he is right. I think that is one reason why there has always been problems with this thing idling. So I did some measurements. I do believe that this has a cam in it. So that's something to consider when we move forward here. I don't think we're going to replace it. Like I said, the insides of the lower end do look good. So I don't think we'll be splitting the case. But I do want to take a look at this transaxle because it is leaking. And I think we need to just address it. So this CV joint looks fairly new. However, this one over here is, I think, the problem, and it's leaking. So getting this transaxle out would be helpful. and we can look at the case some more too if we get it up on the bench. So that's our next goal, is to get this transaxle out and go from there. Side note on the whole performance cam issue, I believe it has a W120 cam in it, and I've read that you need to use dual carbs with a cam like that. Now this engine originally did have dual carbs and they were kind of fiddly and just kind of having issues. We switched it over to a single carb, which has done pretty well, but still having idle issues. So if any of you guys know about the dual carb with the W120 cam, let me know. It's an 1835. And the other thing that I read is going with 1 to 1.25 ratio rockers might help with that lower end and idle issue. So if any of you guys have any comments on going with 1.25 ratio rockers on this, let me know in the comments below, and maybe that's something we'll do when we put this thing back together. Got her. It's a bit heavy. It's a bit of a heavy girl. I think we got her. We got her on the bench. All right, boys and girls, that is one engine removed. She's a bit heavy, but you know, we powered through it. I believe the transaxle is going to be a little more difficult. There's a few more bolts to be taken out, get the tires off, and all the mounts, front mount right there, it's got to be taken off. These two large big bolts on the bottom need to be taken off. But I think we can do it. The starter needs to be disconnected over here. What else? The linkage for the stick shift needs to be disconnected. So this is going to take a little bit more than the engine, I think, at least at this stage. All right, slight change of plans. I probably have to pull the wife's car in for an oil change into the garage tomorrow. So I want to leave the buggy rollable. So I don't want to take the tires off or the transaxle off. Once I do that, it's going to be pretty much stuck in here. So we'll leave that the transaxle for next episode, and we'll tackle the heads and cleaning them up on the rest of this episode. So let's get started. To clean these heads up, I just use a little Dremel tool with these abrasive wheels on here. You can get them cheap on Amazon. They come in different grits, like I wrote on the box, 120, 180, 320, and 400. So depending on how much you want to polish, they're like 10 bucks, and they give you a, I don't know if you guys can see, they give you a junk load of these. So that's what I'm using, and you can get into those fine little spots. So let's do it. Well, there are the heads, at least rough cleaned. We got all the tube seals cleaned up of all the silicone, all the gasket sealing locations for the exhaust, and the intake there on both heads. There's going to be some more cleanup. I don't know if you guys can see, but down in here by the valve guide, I wasn't able to reach. When we get the valve guides out, we'll do another kind of final clean. Really, this was just to see what kind of shape the valve seats were in, and kind of just be able to see the whole status of the heads and just kind of get them clean. So those are the heads. I also did the valves. I know someone's probably going to comment I shouldn't have used that wheel on the valves. don't worry, it's only a 400 grit wheel, and it just barely takes off. I actually doubt it's even 400. That's what it says, but it's very mild abrasive on those. And the valves cleaned up real nicely. So you can see they look almost brand new, but we may replace all the valves. We'll see what we come up with. The first thing is, like I said, get the heads in order, and then, you know, work on the other thing, the transaxle and all that stuff. Well, that is it for this week's episode, guys. Make sure you tune in next time. We're going to tackle this transaxle and get it out of this buggy and see how that thing is doing. Drain the oil, replace the oil, maybe some seals on the axles and stuff like that. So make sure you tune in next time. Hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.